Hello and welcome to an episode on IDAGIO Live where classical music happens. Today's show is very special because I'm here virtually with Daniel Dodd, the artistic director of Festival Strings Lucerne, and Hans-Christoph Mauruschat, the orchestra director of Festival Strings Lucerne. And while we are here speaking via Zoom, via our computers, we in fact just met in reality 2 days ago, and we had a great concert together. It was such a pleasure and honor for me to play my very first concert post-lockdown. So basically my first concert since the beginning of March, and to cooperate with this great orchestra. What a thrill it was. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Hello.
Yeah. So this was also the first performance of Festival Strings Lucerne. This comeback concert, which we gave also on the Day of Music on June 21st. Tell me just a little bit, Daniel, you are living in Lucerne, right? Both of you,
Yep.
Actually.
Yep.
And how was it in the very beginning of this whole lockdown?
The funny thing is that the lockdown happened really literally as we were planning our season concert with Midori. We were rehearsing for it actually, and as I remember, they just, one day after the other we were rehearsing, and there was news every day coming of restrictions, etc., and etc. So it really, for us as an orchestra, we really got to experience it together.
Yeah.
And we ended up turning a trick and making good use of the moment. But it was unbelievable, really.
Yeah.
I mean, we started the week and we were saying, okay, yeah, so this concert looks like it's happening. And by the end of the second day of rehearsal, we were, okay, what do we do?
I think it was quite interesting because Switzerland, correct me if I'm wrong, they were actually, I think it was the first country to really stop some concerts. I think they set it up first, and a lot of other countries followed suit after, because I think at least in the very first week of March, there were still some concerts taking place, and it was into the second week of March where Germany started to say no more concerts, and Austria as well. But in Switzerland, it was quite clear already in the end of February that that some things were not going to be happening with bigger sizes. And so this concert with Midori, Christoph, you mentioned that there was a very big tour planned with the program, going to Asia, in fact. When was that supposed to take place?
Yeah, it was a tour in March. So the concert at the KKL was the premiere of the first concert of the tour. And then was planned to go to England, to Saffron Hall in Saffron Walden near Cambridge. Interesting place. And then from this, on another day, the day after, from London Heathrow to Singapore and then to Hong Kong Arts Festival, 3 concerts in mainland China, and then at the end at Seoul Lotte Hall. And it was, so we were nervous about it from, I don't remember very well, but I think it was in February.
Yeah, things were developing.
We got very bad news from Asia, and then there was the announcement of Hong Kong Arts Festival that they stopped all activities. It was for the first time of the whole
history of the festival.
Of whole history of this festival was all cancelled. And it was a shock for us, I remember. And then the manager of Midori, she came to me and she said maybe 2 weeks prior to the concert at the KKL, maybe we can do, instead of being on tour with this program, we can have a recording in Lucerne. What do you think? And I think, yeah, it's a pretty short term, but we try to manage it. And so we decided to plan live recording at the concert in Lucerne, and then the concert was cancelled, and so then we said, okay, now it's a studio recording, it's without any audience. So we did the best from
so that's really like one of those situations where, like, a big door closes, but little window is opening. And this recording, did it take place in the KKL, in the big hall?
It did. It took place in the big hall, and actually for us it was good. We could use the time well.
Yes.
I mean, we had the hall reserved,
Yeah.
and I mean, it's another thing to sit down and really record it and do it in detail.
Yeah.
In live concert it's this exciting thing to do, but when you sit down and do a studio recording, you can really, polish it off,
explore and try different things.
So it turned out to be a big disappointment for us that we had to give up on the Asia tour, and also the concert in Lucerne. We had the Beethoven Concerto and the two romances and the Beethoven Fourth Symphony, which is amazing piece. And so we had to give up on that. But
was this the program that ended up being recorded, the complete program?
Yeah, so we did the concerto and the romances. So just the solo works. And there was a little consolation prize in that a week later we did end up flying to England. There was a lot of nervousness around that too. Could we get the Italian members of the orchestra through the customs, or should we just maybe hire some other people and then there would be have them coming just for the whole rehearsal and things like that. But we ended up flying there and not changing the people in the orchestra, and we kind of waltzed through customs and through immigration. It was no problem.
Okay.
And played the concert in Saffron Hall. It was great. I mean, we got to play the program once, so that was good, in a concert.
Very nice. And can you tell me a little bit about the atmosphere on both sides about this recording? I mean, in a way, it must have been a time where, things are getting canceled and there's a lot of uncertainty, but did that make it more exciting in a way, more of a good intensity, let's say?
I would say so. I mean, I know Christoph will probably say from the side of the management, there was a lot. They put so much effort for the tour. And I think it was really quite disappointing and in a sense, in workmanship sense, heartbreaking to have to give up that. But and it even though we were talking about this CD live recording, the decision to sit down and make a studio recording was made literally a couple of days before we actually did it. We said, okay, now we'll take the time and actually record it. And it was I really, really enjoyed the time that we had. It was very intense. We worked very hard. Midori did a fabulous job. And I think it's I'm really excited about when it comes out.
That sounds great. And the CD, Christoph, can you give us a hint when it's going to be on the market? When is it going to appear on IDAGIO?
Yes, we cannot say everything about it, but we can say that the release will be in autumn 2020. It will be a major label, so I think quite international release, and so we are very much looking forward to it. And I was listening to. We could listen to the files, and the sound is wonderful. It was for us was the first time also we had the chance to record at the KKL concert hall,
and that's interesting.
20 years ago. But we did the concert series usually, but it was not possible for us to hire the hall for recordings before.
Yes.
And now it was.
Yeah.
Oh, we lost him.
Oh, okay. Well, Daniel, maybe you can tell me that for that recording, how was it? Was the orchestra also already socially distanced, or on that time was it still you had freedom?
I think the concept of social distancing was just being introduced.
Okay.
We had some Italian members.
Sorry, I had a technical problem.
No problem. No problem. We were just talking about how the orchestra was spaced.
How that was back then. No, but we played in our normal.
In the normal. Yeah. Okay.
We did our second recording now here in May. Also the KKL. So we are so happy about having this this venue for recordings now.
Yeah. And that's really exciting. I mean, it kind of segs our way directly into now the last project, which just took place. So this project was obviously planned, you know, in the last few months, right? And the program, I'm just going to give a little bit about the program. There's a Scherzo for String Orchestra by Franz Schrecker. There was Bilder aus Osten, so pictures from the South by Robert Schumann, and Dvorak Serenade for String Orchestra. And this was also just recorded in KKL a few days ago. Right?
That's right. Christoph, when did we decide to do this concert? I think it was really...
It was also very, yeah, so not it was also quite late, the planning.
Yeah.
So it was compensation of concerts we wanted to do here in Germany, invited by Deutschlandfunk Kultur. And we couldn't do this, of course. And so Deutschlandfunk Kultur, the producer, he offered to me, he said to me, and it was really, I was happy when he said, yeah, we can come to you to Switzerland to record the orchestra.
Yeah.
And we just have to find a partner in Switzerland, the SRF2 Kultur, the radio of Switzerland. And then we asked them and they said yes, and we found a date where they can, where they are free to broadcast the live recording. And we decided for the 21st June to do the concert. And then we asked you to be the soloist for the concert.
Yeah.
And so it came all together.
It came together really well. Yeah.
Together very, very late, I think, only some weeks. I think this is something what we learn with the crisis now, to be flexible and
absolutely
do things very easily. And we are also that we trust with that we can make everything possible. We had so many partners with this concert, and we brought them together, and it worked out finally.
Yeah. And this program, was this the program that you were supposed to be performing in Germany on this tour, or is it a little bit different?
No, it was different, completely different.
Completely different.
And another project, yeah.
Okay, and that's of course interesting. Did you decide these pieces together?
Yeah, we decide most things together. We talk about things, the programs that we want to do. You know, each one of us will make suggestions. Christoph is great at finding things that are interesting to play, and you know, and we'll look at them and decide. And this program was also influenced by, well, first of all, that we wanted to play with you, and that we wanted to do Chopin, so we knew that was kind of the easy part of the program. And the other part was, okay, so if we're going to take this situation and use it to make a CD recording around the concert, you know, what would we like to record? And we, you know, Dvorak Serenade is like, you know, it's a signature piece of ours, and the Pictures of the East we had played before, but hadn't played for a long time, and it's really actually quite a fascinating arrangement for string orchestra.
Yes, and because of course we all know it. I mean, I kind of know it in the version for two pianists, but this is an arrangement done by Friedrich Hermann.
Right.
And it sounded really very haunting. It showed many different facets, which I hadn't heard of the piece before. And I think it really also fits well in the general atmosphere nowadays, you know, full of subtleties, nuances. And yeah. So
Schumann's such a fantastic composer. And so, you know, if you know, there are always a lot of opportunities as a musician if you take Schumann. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And how was this production? Was there some difference, because this was then the first project of the orchestra after, I guess, about
this was that production we did with social distancing. So we had every musician had their own music stand. We had I can't remember what the distance was exactly, but it was really quite far apart. And I can remember the very first rehearsal. We you know, everyone of course was you know, it's so great to see everybody. We hadn't, you know, after the lockdown, you see people, it's like, wow, that's
Yes.
amazing. You know,
Yeah.
there are really
Right.
people out there, and then and people, you know, so it was a very exciting time actually just to meet. And then we sat down, and I'm like, oh, you know, my eyes aren't that good anymore, and I can hardly see the cellist, but he's over there somewhere, I know, right? And so we played the first couple, and you know, it was like, man, this is so far away. But you know, ears are fascinating things, and they
Yes.
kind of,
They
you know,
tune
they
in.
adjust.
They adjust, yeah.
And I must say, we didn't make things easier, but we managed all right. We managed.
Yeah, I also felt, I mean, in the concert, you do notice, and later looking at photos, you notice how this this orchestra is so spread apart, and it's taking up, I think, the space of a big symphonic orchestra almost in a way. And while there were challenges, it also, you had to really pay so much attention to one another, and that's of course also a plus, because it's almost like you're listening, but listening more than in a normal concert situation, and that makes for like special moments, I guess. I also remember when the orchestra was coming on stage, it was almost like, you know, choreographed, very beautiful. You know, everybody was going straight to the center. Well, the distance was always equidistant from one another, and yeah, I can see that it was a pleasure for, you know, the eyes as well.
Yeah, we were told we weren't allowed. We had to hold 2 meters distance. We were walking out on the
Yes.
stage. But it was funny when I was standing, because I come on last, so I was just watching the people come out. I mean, it was a very spontaneous kind of measurement. And then if you say they looked simultaneous, then I say, wow, it was really
Yes.
because they would just wait and then they'd walk out. The next one would wait, walk out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, from what I saw in the back, it looked almost as if it was perfectly rehearsed. So already you're in the groove, which is great.
Of course it is, yes. Everything is real.
We try. But this is very interesting. I mean, the festival Strings Lucerne, maybe you can tell me just a little bit about this ensemble. This is a string ensemble, and normally it's about 20 some members. Is that right? String players?
Yeah, around this. I think we are now, 20 string members and a harpsichord player. These are the members of the orchestra. This is the history of the orchestra. The history of the orchestra was founded in 1956 as a soloist ensemble for string players and a harpsichordist, and was the same size than I Musici di Roma, for example, which were founded in 1953, 3 years earlier. It was I think it was so at this time this chamber orchestras came to the stage. Also, Academy of St. Martin in the Fields was founded in 58, and all these orchestras came to the stage at this time. And the orchestra had a big career in the very beginning with Deutsche Grammophon. There was a recording contract from 56 to 73. And one of the founders was Wolfgang Schneiderhan, who was a recording artist of Deutsche Grammophon at this time. And he made the contact, and his assistant, Rudolf Baumgartner, he was the first concertmaster of the orchestra. And then he started a career as a conductor of the orchestra as well. He began to conduct the orchestra just for the recordings. And then he also started to conduct the orchestra on concerts.
Okay.
And the orchestra was, from the very beginning, it was planned as a touring orchestra.
Yes.
For example, what you mentioned, the Hong Kong Arts Festival was, we were invited for the first time in 1978. To Japan, we went for the first time in 71, I think, and to the US in 58 or something like this. So the orchestra started very early world touring, every year, and so that's the history of the orchestra. So when we did recordings with the big artists of this era, there was Clara Haskell, Wolfgang Schneiderhan, and Pierre Fournier, Zino Francescatti.
And so this orchestra, most of the concerts are kind of international, and you're touring all around Europe, a lot of times in Asia. And I'm sure there's a lot of great repertoire for a string ensemble like this, because it's small enough that people can be very intimate, I think, with one another. And it's almost like a very big chamber group. Is that right?
Yeah, but we did now, when Dan became artistic director of the orchestra in 2012, we also began to have much more projects with a mid-size orchestra, let's say, with 35 people, 35 to 38, that we can play Beethoven symphonies. We did Mendelssohn, and you can say what your intention is about this.
Yes, I wanted to discover these eras. Beethoven symphonies, of course, is amazing thing to play with an orchestra, and also the late Mozart symphonies we did, which had never been played before by strings.
Yeah,
and I just kind of testing the boundaries of what really is feasible at a conductor, and where the ensemble can still have develop a feeling on stage for the audience as well, of chamber music and of making music together, and kind of everybody is aware of their role in performing. And in a sense, when we come back to our core formation, that's of course always a special thing. It's more intimate in a way. It's this kind of tight-knit string group, except when we've got social distancing. but it's a great that we've done. How many Beethoven symphonies have we done now, Christoph? We've done 4,
the
5,
number 1, 2,
8,
4, 7, 8.
Yes, so that's 5 so far. And
are those versions with like more members, or there are strings?
We will take we'll add violins to the group. So I don't, and of course the winds we have fantastic winds that we have a lot of lovely people that we love to play with, who are just amazing. And actually with a number of these people, we you kind of play with them enough that they feel like members, even though they're not.
Yeah. But all of this, I mean, this is perfect in a way also for the current times, because what you are then creating programming wise, that's definitely an advantage compared to a lot of the bigger orchestras who would then have to like cut down people to make an ensemble work on a certain stage, whereas you already have a built-in program, so to say, prepared with people.
That's right. We have this flexibility, which is really also, I think, attractive for the audience. So, we can put on a string program like we did, last Sunday. We have the Beethoven size or Mendelssohn size symphony orchestra, and then we have chamber music as well. Which are intensifying this season. So
fantastic. Yeah, it's all very
plans for it, have we? So we have some plans for a chamber project with you also.
Yeah, we have some special ones coming up. I think with this orchestra, what I felt playing, this was also my first time working with Festival Strings Lucerne last weekend, was just that everyone was so close to one another. I don't mean physically, but you could just sense that because you've all worked together for so long, there's this recognition and listening and almost sensing what the other person wants without really saying anything. And we played the Chopin Concerto No. 2 without conductor, which is something I had never done. And Chopin is always full of rubatos, and it's sometimes a little bit tricky, even with a conductor. Sometimes even trickier. But this time it just seemed to really work because everyone was so attuned and people were breathing together, and that was very special. But I think this is also in the spirit of the orchestra. So there is, I wanted just to ask about that. So Dan, you are the artistic leader of this orchestra, and usually there are soloists who come sometimes who might play and direct, but for the most part, you would be kind of acting as the conductor in a way, right?
Right. Yeah, certain soloists like to come and they like to lead their concertos, which is fine. Like when Rudolf Buchbinder comes and he does his Beethoven concertos,
Yeah,
which he has played for. Can I say decades? I can say decades without being.
I think so.
But but it's fantastic when he comes then because he's so clear. Everything has been crystallized,
Yeah.
and but otherwise, I'm kind of the guy at the helm, and I will I do read from the score, so I will play from the score, which especially helps me in the rehearsals because you can hear things, but if you can see it as well, then it's easier to find it afterwards. And but I would say it's not the same, not completely the same role as a conductor, because a conductor is really he can stick his hand out,
Yeah.
in the middle of a performance and
Yeah.
tune the balance.
Mhm.
And in my case, it's a sense of you have to, find out in the rehearsal, are we all on board with what's happening, and is everybody on board with how the piece is functioning, whether that's a concerto or whatever. The thing that I do feel very comfortable with my group is, of course, we've done a lot of accompanying of concertos because we almost always play with a soloist, and I do feel that we love to do it. Actually, we love to play concertos with soloists, especially they're like so with such beautiful soloists who play wonderfully. It's a big inspiration for us. And I think what we really get as a group is the role that an orchestra plays in a concerto. It's
Yeah.
it's an important role.
Yeah,
When
absolutely.
you turn on the tutti, when the beginning or whatever, it has to be big. It has to be important. You've got to want to support the soloist so they feel good. It's like a good service at a restaurant or something.
Well, I would I wouldn't use the word service, but in a way, I really like what you said. It's really like a democracy. So important today, of the orchestra. And when we played the Chopin concerto, I just want to state sometimes some people would say that Chopin himself, being a prolific pianist, he didn't write much for other instruments. I mean, he wrote a few things, I think, for there's of course the famous cello sonata, then there's the trio, and then he wrote these two concertos, and that's pretty much the bulk of what he wrote with other instruments. He was really primarily a pianist's composer. And some people would say that, yes, the concertos are not orchestrated so well, because most of the time the members are sitting there, and in the regular version, I mean, sometimes I think the woodwinds, they sit for long time, minutes on end, and then they just play one note. Or there's that dreaded horn solo, which in this version was so interesting. It was taken by the cello and then the viola in the third movement. And that's the place I think every hornist is really quite nervous, because after a long time of just playing maybe one note, they suddenly have this fanfare. A lot of pressure is on them. And in the version that we played for strings, I didn't have the impression at all that there was too little to do and everyone was just playing like one note or so. It felt much more like there was a lot of more equality, and I had to really listen, and it was so interesting, this version, the string version.
Yeah, I've played now. How many? I haven't played the regular symphonic version, but I have played two other versions besides this one, so three versions of it. In a quartet version, I mean, as a piano,
That's
and also a version for a string orchestra and a small amount of winds. Yeah.
Okay.
But the with the string orchestra, it's really nice. Of course, you have the string sound, and we give a lot of texture to your kind of the music
Yeah.
that Alice makes.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
then there are very beautiful melodies that come in various voices, and
Yeah. And actually, I always think Chopin's music, we even talked about this a little, it suits string players very well. And there are like transcriptions of different pieces, like different, I guess, Chopin nocturnes or so, for violin and for cello. And sometimes when I play them, the piano would just be playing the chords, the accompaniment in a way. I would think like, oh, this sounds better than the piano version. Like it even transcends that beauty sometimes.
I play two nocturnes. I have that I play from Chopin.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
beautiful. You can almost play them. I've heard them and I've played them also without the accompaniment, just the melody. It works.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We'll have to do that next time. A fun encore, let's say. Yeah, I would love to hear maybe just a little bit about your background and how you came to Lucerne. You have a long history with this city, I guess.
Right. Well, I grew up in Adelaide in Australia, and I come from a family of I have one brother and three sisters, and my brother and two sisters are all professional musicians. My older brother, 1 year older, Stanley, he's in Berlin with the Berlin Philharmonic, a violinist, and he's also a conductor. And then I have a sister in Germany who's a concertmaster, Kylie, and Sophia, who is a multi-talent, has a studio where she teaches violin, cello, and contrabass, and viola, of course.
Yeah.
And she plays all of them. I mean, cello, she plays also really well. So we started violin when we were young with the mother of the concertmaster of Festival Strings, Mrs. Larsens, and Gunnar Larsens would come down. The concertmaster would come to Adelaide to visit his mother, and Mrs. Larsens would give the opportunity to select students to have lessons with him. And it was always, I was a little kid. The first time I had a lesson with him, I would have been 5 or 6 or something, 7 maybe. And it was so fascinating. He was a very fascinating person, and he had a very, very special way of teaching. And it was always a very exciting thing. And so there was, from a very young age, there was this connection to Festival Strings Lucerne through him. And so when we finished high school, Stan finished high school first, of course, and he knew he wanted to go and study overseas, and Gunnar Larsens was teaching in Lucerne. So this was the obvious connection. So that's kind of how it, how it kind of started. And when I finished high school, when Stan went over and he studied, Baumgartner took him straight into strings, so he became a member. He was like, I don't know, it just always, it just happened. So he was, we would hear from him, and he would be, on tour here, on tour there. And then I came in February of '89. And I can remember, I think it was March of '89, I did my first project with strings.
Okay.
Tour to Portugal.
Nice. And since then, you've been somehow connected, and you became the leader, like the official leader in 2012. But there was a lot of projects.
Right. Yeah, I was concertmaster. I was a member on and off. I wanted to also focus on my studies, so there was a while when I just but I was always asked as subbing, and I played. I've played first violin, I've played second violin, I've played viola, I've led the violas. I've has a viola solo with the strings in Germany. So I've had a bit of I've been around a bit with the orchestra. I never had the chance to play cello with them yet.
Okay. One never knows. Yeah. Great. Well, Christoph, then I would also just like to highlight, because for your job, you are doing all this like planning and also discussing repertoire together, finding interesting programs for this ensemble together with Dan. And I know one of your passions, of course, is really delving into the repertoire and finding some unplayed repertoire. I know that the Festival Strings Lucerne, they're also often commissioning pieces, which is fantastic. And can you tell us a little bit about what you do normally, how you find these pieces, and maybe about the special archive?
Yes, so I also studied violin, I must say. So this is my background. I'm also a violinist. I was playing as a professional for some years, and had very good teachers in Berlin and Vienna, and I enjoyed very much this time. But I wanted to do something else all my life, and so I decided to look around, and then I found in my family, actually, so something what got my interest, and was the archive of my great-grandfather, a composer who was completely unknown and forgotten, and I was not sure about the quality first, and so I was a bit shy showing it to other musicians. And then we started with it and had a great success. And we did some great recordings over now many years. And they made an opera in Germany 4 years ago in 2016. It was also recorded, got prizes, and the orchestra songs were produced by Bamberg Symphony. And we have a future project with Rundfunk Symphonieorchester Berlin. And so I figured out that this music is great. And so it was all unknown, and I was happy about to see it. Some of the scores I was the person who saw it for the first time, and also members of my family, they didn't know about anything that we had scores of orchestra songs, and now they are published by Universaledition, for example, and was all in our cellar. And this was the funny story about. And so I'm very used to work in archives and with catalogs, and I know where I can find the information I need to find.
Oh, well, that's so interesting. I mean, also with like the personal connection, I mean, that must mean a lot, because Hans Sommer, I also had a look, then I've heard one of the CDs with his chamber music, with his trio and fantastic stuff. And I guess he was also a student of Franz Liszt, is that right?
Yeah, he was when he was quite old. He went to him when he was more than 40 years old to study with him as a composer. And he know him, and he was a close friend of with Richard Strauss. His letters were published this year by the Richard Strauss Gesellschaft. And he was a close friend to Engelbert Humperdinck, the opera composer. And this was his surrounding.
Well, we're very excited to
known
see.
He was also close to the Schumann family in his early days. Yeah. So
it's so nice to see like the connections between different composers in the time, and realize that they had social lives too.
Yeah.
But you mentioned that he has an anniversary coming up in 2022, right? 100 years.
Yeah.
So we're looking forward then to seeing what are the projects that are going to come out with Festival Strings Lucerne, or other CDs with his song cycles and different things. That's definitely exciting. Before we end, I want to, of course, highlight several albums that we have prepared for you in the playlist. Dan, you have a great CD out called Time Transcending. And I had a look, and it's such an interesting mix of composers. I was so delighted to see that on top of, Bach, Isai, Messiaen, Paganini, there's also a piece by Rockberg. Maybe just tell us briefly, how did you put all of these together and create it under this umbrella theme of transcending time?
Yeah, well, I had this piece by a Swiss composer called Turing Brehm, called Clockwork. And he told me it's based, he was inspired by the movie Clockwork Orange by Stanley Kubrick, which is it's an incredible movie. And the piece is very, it's not something where you sit and listen and you go, oh wow, it's amazing, but it's really quite an impressive piece. And I wanted to construct something that just kind of dealt with the concept of time, and how time is, also it's a concept, and how you can look at it in different ways, like with the quartet for the end of time, and the last rose, and so the connection with Rockberg was the 24th Caprice of Paganini and the variations on 24th Caprice by Rockberg. So it's kind of back in time.
Very interesting. Yeah, I mean, this is a great CD, and on top of that, on top of Daniel's solo CD, Time Transcending, there's also a wonderful recording, which I had the chance to listen to a little bit today, of Festival Strings Lucerne, and Arabella Steinbacher, with you, Dan, as the leader, with Mozart concertos. And this is just so light and witty, and it just makes one cheerful to listen to. And IDAGIO, of course, also has the full catalog of the many other historical recordings of Festival Strings Lucerne. So thank you so much for joining me today, Christoph and Daniel. It was a lot of fun to see you again so quickly after Lucerne. And thank you also for joining us on our talk as well. And please feel free to listen to the CDs that we've highlighted, and looking forward to seeing you next time on IDAGIO Live, where classical music happens.
Thank you, Claire.
Thank you.